Okay, let's talk about something maybe you've seen. Have you ever watched a group, an organization, maybe even, parts of your own life that started out vibrant?
Yeah, full of energy.
Exactly. And then slowly it just seems to fragment,
Yeah.
get weighed down by like sheer complexity.
Oh, absolutely. Or maybe you felt it yourself, right? Just
Mm.
feeling bogged down. So many activities, but you're not quite sure if they connect back to what really matters.
Yet hits home for a lot of people, I think. It's such a common challenge today. We're in this whirlwind of best practices,
Yeah.
new methods popping up all the time, higher expectations.
Right. And it's so easy to fall into that trap of thinking more automatically means better.
But it doesn't, does it?
Often not.
Yeah.
And that's often where the real test is, isn't it? The true measure of, let's say, lasting health. It's not really about how many new things you launch or, how thick your strategic plan is.
So what is it then?
It's more about whether you can genuinely stay tethered to your core mission. Can you hold on to that without getting swept away by all the noise, the constant pull of the next big thing?
Absolutely. So that's what this deep dive is all about. We've got a stack of sources here, articles, some research, really sharp insights. And we want to unpack this idea, this maybe profound truth,
Which is?
that the secret to long-term viability, to making a lasting impact, it might not be about constant reinvention.
Okay, interesting. So it's not about always changing.
Maybe it's more about rediscovering something more fundamental, something like disciplined simplicity.
Discipline simplicity. I like that phrasing.
So our mission today is really to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge from these sources. We want to help you understand how you can sustain clarity, how you can build resilience in a world that, let's face it, often pulls us towards distraction, towards irrelevance even.
Okay, let's dig in. Where do we start?
Well, let's start with how things unravel because, collapse, it rarely happens with a big bang.
Right, it's usually quieter than that.
Much quieter, almost imperceptible sometimes. Our sources call it drift.
Drift. And it's fascinating how ancient wisdom actually talks about this very modern-sounding problem.
How so?
Well, think about this Greek word, paranish. It shows up in an ancient text, Hebrews chapter 2.
Correct. What does it mean?
It paints this picture, this really vivid image. Imagine a ship, right? It's just gently slipping past its harbor, not because of a storm, not because of a mutiny.
It's just slipping.
Yeah, just because no one dropped the anchor. It's this quiet, unresisted slide. And before you know it, you're miles off course. You barely even noticed it happening. That's drift.
Wow. That is such a powerful image, isn't it? You can almost feel that slow, unnoticed shift.
You can.
And we see echoes of this drift, historically speaking, everywhere, not just in old sailing metaphors.
Definitely. Think about, say, social movements or even companies. They start out burning so brightly, maybe achieve incredible things.
And then poof, they just fizzle out.
Exactly. We've seen it over and over. Movements that kick off with amazing energy, a really clear purpose.
But then they just dissipate somehow.
Yeah. Maybe they started with pure zeal,
Yeah.
right? But over time, if those core principles aren't really anchored down, well, they can collapse. Maybe unmet expectations pile up, or internal fights, or just a subtle drift in their core beliefs or philosophy.
So what began as focused passion just dissolves into confusion.
Pretty much, yeah.
And what's interesting is you're saying this drift, it isn't usually because people are lazy or, have bad intentions.
Not typically, no. It's often the accumulation of good intentions. New programs get added, new initiatives launch.
All good things, right?
On the surface, maybe.
Yeah.
But they become untethered somehow from the original principles. It's like we keep adding layers, adding more good stuff, but without constantly checking, is this still truly aligned with the essential core?
Which raises a really crucial question, I think. Can all that complexity, all those layers actually end up masking something deeper, like a distance or maybe even an emptiness?
Our sources strongly suggest it can. Yes. Complexity, it gets marketed as maturity, right? As progress, sophistication.
Yeah, look how much we're doing.
Exactly. But in reality, it can lead to this phenomenon someone called "we've tried everything" fatigue. It kind of obscures the real health of an organization or a community or even just your own life.
That's like the scaffolding just hides the fact that the building itself might be shaky.
That's a great analogy, yeah. The scaffolding for new ideas overshadows the original essential structure.
Okay, so if complexity is this quiet enemy, then simplicity, well, that must be a key part of the answer.
It has to be.
But when we say simplicity, I think a lot of people immediately jump to ideas like, reductionism, or being naive, or just stripping everything down to bare bones.
That's a really common misconception, and it's important we clarify that.
So what do we mean?
Well, let's take biblical simplicity as an example. It's way more profound than just cutting things back. It doesn't mean you can't have thoughtful strategies or deep thinking. There's another Greek word, haplos. It comes up in 2 Corinthians.
Both those.
And it carries ideas of singleness, sincerity, purity, wholeness.
Yeah.
It describes a life or an organization that is unmixed, undivided, undistracted.
Unmixed, undivided, undistracted. That sounds powerful.
It is. Think of it like having spiritual and strategic integrity.
Yeah.
Being deeply oriented around one central gravitational pull.
So it's definitely not about just having less structure or taking a naive view of a complex world.
Not at all. It's actually something much more active than that.
Like a disciplined pursuit.
Precisely. Simplicity isn't about doing less just for the heck of it. It's the disciplined pursuit of what matters most.
Okay.
It's about building a culture of clarity, of accountability, of constant renewal that fiercely protects what is truly essential.
So it's not anti-growth?
No, not at all. It's not resisting growth. It's about going deeper so you can grow stronger. Anchoring more profoundly instead of just spreading thin. Anchoring deeper. I like that. And this whole idea of simplicity, of getting back to essentials, you're saying it follows a pattern, like a timeless pattern throughout history.
It really does seem to, yeah. We can trace this thread all the way back to some of humanity's earliest stories.
Like foundational myths or creation accounts.
Exactly. In many traditions, you find this initial state described as maybe wholeness through trust, a simple framework for life to flourish, usually rooted in clear guidance, relationship, connection, interdependence.
That makes sense.
But what's fascinating is how complexity often enters these stories. It's usually not through some big disaster like a storm or invasion.
How then?
Often it's through a question, a subtle query that plants a seed of doubt, of suspicion. It encourages self-justification, autonomy.
And that fractures the original simple trust.
Precisely. It fractures that clear, unmixed state. You could almost say sin itself is the original complexity.
Wow. Okay, and then from that point, do we see things get more layered? More rules, more systems? Often, yes. Think about ancient peoples. They might start with a very direct relational connection to the divine, maybe summarized by a simple core command like, love your creator with all your heart.
Right, the core idea.
But then, over time, you see these layers develop. More elaborate rules. Sometimes they're called fence laws.
Fence laws, like designed to protect the core.
Initially, yeah, that's the intention. But eventually, these layers can actually end up obscuring the heart of the original principle itself.
They get in the way.
They can. And alongside that, you often see this search for manageable power, trying to get control over the unpredictable parts of life.
Right, trying to make things less scary, maybe?
Perhaps. But it leads to practices that, while they seem to offer control, actually create more distance from that original simple intention.
There's an ancient text, isn't there? Something like, these people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me.
Exactly. That captures it perfectly. Complexity can often hide that emotional or spiritual distance.
But then, history also gives us these figures who seem to cut right through all that complexity. They emerge as models of, like, radical simplicity.
Yes, absolutely. Someone like Jesus is a prime example.
How so?
Well, his invitations were just profoundly simple and relational. Come, follow me, abide in me, seek first the kingdom.
Very direct.
Very. And think about how he took vast amounts of law and distilled it down to just 2 core commands. Love God, love your neighbor.
That wasn't reducing it, though.
No, our sources see it as a powerful refinement, getting right to the absolute core. And his life reflected that too, didn't it?
In what way?
He modeled this incredibly rhythmic, grounded life. He'd withdraw for prayer before big moments, seek quiet before a crisis, teach about just having enough for today, resisted distractions by constantly returning to foundational truths.
He embodied that undistracted focus you mentioned.
He really did, a powerful, simple focus.
And that clarity, that simplicity, it seems like it really fueled the early movements that followed him, didn't it?
Oh, hugely. They were described as being devoted, not divided.
Devoted, not divided.
Yeah. Think about those early communities. One key ancient account in Acts highlights their radical simplicity. It says, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread, and to prayer.
What's missing from that list?
Well, notice the absence of complex bureaucracy or, elaborate branding strategies.
Right, it was just focused.
Incredibly focused, and yet they faced huge challenges, didn't they? Internal debates about rules, legalistic pressures, emerging philosophical ideas that threatened to complicate things.
So how did they handle that?
The early leaders, people like Paul, they fought fiercely to protect the single-mindedness of their core message.
So simplicity was like a shield.
In essence, yeah. It safeguarded their clarity, it empowered their perseverance, even when facing enormous pressure both from outside and from within.
Okay, so if we look at this whole sweep of history, starting with clarity, then complexity creeps in, then figures emerge embodying simplicity, where does the story usually end up? Where does it point?
Often it circles back. Many of these grand narratives, even the ones that seem really complex on the surface, they ultimately point towards a return to an expanded form of that original simplicity.
Expanded how?
Like all the complicated threads of the story finally get woven back together. They resolve into the state of unbroken communion, where a central unifying presence consumes all the complexity.
Like a final resolution into clarity.
Exactly. It's often depicted as the ultimate goal, a return to simple, unhindered presence and alignment, the end of drift.
Fascinating. Okay, so we've established simplicity is powerful, it's historically rooted, it's vital. But if it's so important, why do so many things falter? Why do good movements, good organizations, even our own good intentions sometimes just fall apart?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It seems like there's this unraveling thread we need to understand.
There absolutely is. There's a recognizable pattern to collapse, often.
What does it look like?
It frequently starts with that period of purity, of clarity we talked about.
Yeah.
Then comes expansion. And with expansion often comes accretion.
Accretion, like piling things on.
Yeah, piling on new practices, new programs, new initiatives. This gradual layering eventually leads to drift. The core mission, it gets assumed. People think, oh yeah, we know what we're about. But it's no longer being actively pursued, not with that same focus.
And from drift.
From drift, eventually it comes collapse.
Can you give us some examples, maybe beyond like ancient spiritual movements?
Yeah.
Something more contemporary.
Sure. Think about businesses, companies that were once pioneers, maybe like Blockbuster Video.
Oh yeah, Blockbuster, good example.
It had a really clear, simple offering, right? Rent movies, but then technology shifted, the world changed.
DVDs by mail, then streaming.
Exactly. And they accreted, they tried adding online stuff, but they still clung desperately to their physical stores. They drifted from their core purpose, which was really just providing easy access to entertainment, and got stuck on maintaining a specific business model.
They lost sight of the why.
They did. Or think about social initiatives. They might start with a very specific high-impact goal, helping one particular group tackling one specific problem.
Yeah, really focused.
But then maybe success comes or funding changes and they start trying to be all things to all people, adding programs, broadening the scope, and they lose that targeted impact. They spread themselves too thin.
And it's striking how you put it earlier that drift is subtle. It often wears the robes of relevance.
It really does. It disguises itself as maturity or necessary evolution or strategic expansion.
Which makes it so dangerous. So what are the root causes then? What really drives this drift?
Well, our sources point to a few core culprits. One really significant one is doctrinal or foundational erosion.
Yeah.
This is when the clarity around your core beliefs, your foundational principles, gets traded for something else. Maybe comfort, maybe trying not to offend anyone.
Softening the hard edges, perhaps.
Exactly. Or chasing novelty just for the sake of being new.
Right.
When those fundamental tenets, whether it's a company's mission statement, a product philosophy, a set of ethical guidelines, or theological doctrines, when they become optional or negotiable, the center just cannot hold.
So it's not just what you believe or what your mission is, but how firmly you hold it, how deeply it anchors everything else.
Precisely. It has to be the anchor.
Okay, what else contributes to this drift?
Another major cause is something we often call mission creep.
Mission creep. Heard that one before.
Yeah, it's losing the center in just a sea of activity. Remember that ancient story about Martha?
Busy serving while Mary sat and listened.
Right. Martha was distracted with much serving, but she was missing the essential point of the gathering. We can do that too. We find ourselves doing lots of good things, maybe even important things, but they come at the expense of doing the essential thing, the thing that defines why we exist, what our unique impact is supposed to be.
That makes so much sense. It's easy to get caught up in the busyness, isn't it? And just lose sight of the actual purpose.
Incredibly easy.
What about when things grow? When organizations build structures, get more established?
Well, that leads directly to the third cause. Inward focus and institutionalization.
Okay, what did that look like?
This happens when a community or a company or any group really starts prioritizing its own image, its internal structures, or just its own sustainability over its original mission.
Protecting the institution itself becomes the goal.
Essentially, yes. It can lead to this state where there's a form of purpose but no power. Everything looks good on the outside, the rules are followed meticulously, the org chart is perfect.
But the heart is gone.
Yeah, the heart of what it was created to do is missing. The focus shifts from making an impact out there to just preserving things in here.
Right. And there was one more cause you mentioned, something about leadership, the charisma trap.
Yes, leadership imbalance. Now, charismatic leaders can be amazing, right? They can spark movements, drive innovation, inspire people.
But there's a downside.
There can be. If that leader's vision consistently outpaces accountability, if there aren't strong checks and balances, it can lead to an overdependence on that single voice. It creates unbalanced cultures.
Where everything revolves around one person.
Exactly. And that lack of balance, that lack of shared leadership or accountability can actually accelerate drift. The organization becomes more about the leader's personality or their latest idea rather than the shared core mission.
Okay, wow. That all sounds pretty daunting, actually. Doctrinal erosion, mission creep, institutionalization, leadership imbalance.
It can be. These forces are powerful.
Yeah. But we don't want to just leave people feeling hopeless. If we want to build something that lasts, if you want to build something lasting in your life or work, what's the framework? How do we pursue the sustained simplicity? You said it's a strategy, not just a feeling.
It absolutely is a strategy. Sustained simplicity isn't just sentimentality. It's a strategic pursuit. It has to be guarded by discipline, and it needs to be lived out in rhythm.
Okay, lived in rhythm, what does that look like?
Our sources highlight about 5 interlocking components. Think of them as essential building blocks for enduring health, whether that's personal health or organizational health.
Okay, 5 components. What's the first one?
First, and maybe most foundational, recenter on your core purpose. Constantly.
The core purpose. That has to be the starting point.
It has to be the axis, the central point around which everything else revolves, like that ancient idea, in him all things hold together. If your core purpose isn't absolutely clear and absolutely primary, complexity will invade. It's inevitable.
So this requires what? Ruthless prioritization.
Yes. Ruthlessly prioritizing what truly matters, even if it means sacrificing things that look good on paper, like certain metrics or external validation. Soul health over platform metrics, you might say.
Okay, recenter on the core. What's next?
Second, cultivate rhythms of return.
Rhythms of return. I like that phrase you used earlier, patterning after heaven's pace.
Exactly. This component is all about embedding consistent, restorative rhythms into the fabric of life or work. It's not just about occasional efforts.
So like specific practices.
Yes. Things like a regular Sabbath practice, intentionally resting from achievement, from producing, or establishing a daily rule of life building in time for reflection, for learning, for quiet, for connection, and also taking periodic, maybe seasonal, extended retreats for deeper recalibration and alignment.
These aren't luxuries then.
Absolutely not. They're life-sustaining disciplines. Think of them like scaffolding that supports healthy long-term growth.
Okay, core purpose, rhythms of return. Third
is disciplined pruning.
Pruning. That sounds potentially painful. Saying no more often.
It often is difficult, yes, but it's vital, just like a gardener prunes a vine to get more fruit.
Right, strategic subtraction.
Exactly. Strategic subtraction is essential for any thriving organism, whether it's a person or an organization. It takes courage.
Courage to do.
Courage to actually audit your programs, your projects, maybe even your personal commitments, and ask the hard questions. Is this truly producing transformation? Is it genuinely aligned with our core purpose? Or is it just consuming energy, time, resources without real meaningful impact?
Oof. That requires honesty.
Deep honesty.
Yeah. Okay. Core purpose, rhythms, pruning. What's number 4?
Fourth is relational integrity.
Relational integrity. So bringing it back to people. Community.
Absolutely. Purpose isn't usually lived out well in isolation. It thrives in genuine connection.
So what does that involve?
It means cultivating spaces where honesty is possible, where people can speak truth to each other, fostering mutual growth, mutual discipleship, real support, and actively resisting the kind of isolation that, frankly, breeds complexity and insularity.
So strong, transparent relationships act as a buffer against drift.
A powerful buffer, yes.
Okay, one more component, number 5.
Number 5 is purpose-led flexibility.
Purpose-led flexibility. So being structured, but not rigid. Respond.
Exactly. Being ordered, but also responsive to, where the spirit might be leading or where new insights emerge, even when those insights disrupt your nice, neat plans.
That sounds tricky to balance.
It is. It means cultivating discernment individually and collectively, building agile teams or habits, and crucially, holding your methods loosely while holding your mission firmly.
Don't confuse the how with the why.
Precisely. Don't let your programs or structures become so rigid that they squeeze out the possibility of truly transformative, maybe unexpected shifts.
Okay, so recenter, rhythms, pruning, relationships, flexibility. And all of this, ultimately, is aiming at what?
It's aiming at building to last. It's about redefining success, moving away from just looking at viral moments or, how fast something expands.
Towards what?
Towards longevity, towards sustained, meaningful impact over the long haul. It means prioritizing deep foundational development, spiritual formation, strong culture, resilient systems over just superficial growth numbers.
That's a very different way of thinking about success.
It is. It's a generational perspective.
Okay, these principles are powerful. To make them even clearer, our sources use this really interesting illustration, a kind of case study. They call it the Koinos contrast.
Ah, yes, the tale of two communities.
Exactly. Two hypothetical communities, let's call them Koinos West and Koinos East, started in similar places, similar opportunities, but ended up on very different paths.
Right. So Koinos West, they picture this as the flourishing garden.
Flourishing garden. What made it flourish?
It was deeply rooted in certain practices, things like radical hospitality, real communal living, a strong commitment to foundational teachings, and a clear outward mission.
So tangible practice.
Very tangible. But what was really crucial, according to this illustration, was their unwavering commitment to their central guiding principle. That idea we talked about, in him all things hold together, that was their anchor.
And how did they maintain that anchor?
They practice something they call rhythmic recalibration every quarter, apparently.
Rhythmic recalibration. What did that involve?
They'd intentionally pause and ask themselves hard questions. Are we drifting? Are we starting to confuse just being busy with actual meaningful fruitfulness?
Wow, that takes discipline.
It does. And they were apparently brave enough to do the pruning we talked about. They'd cut programs that weren't serving the core anymore. They even intentionally planted new, smaller communities like house churches just to maintain that sense of intimacy and focus as they grew.
So incredibly intentional about guarding that simple core essence.
Very. But then you have the contrast. Koinos East. Pictured as the fading bloom.
The fading bloom. What happened there?
Well, they also started with passion, lots of energy,
Yeah.
but they quickly lacked clarity on their core principles. Their foundational beliefs were kind of fuzzy.
So that doctrinal erosion we discussed.
Exactly. They maybe neglected sound doctrine, overemphasized novel experiences without a strong anchor to ground them. And they allowed charismatic leadership to kind of run rampant without enough accountability.
The leadership imbalance trap.
Right. And what happened? Programs started multiplying, but without a clear connection to purpose, people got burned out, there was fragmentation, it just faded.
That contrast really throws three key pillars into sharp relief, doesn't it? A framework for sustained simplicity that seems like it applies pretty broadly.
It really does. The first is Pillar 1, core principles anchoring in truth.
Okay, pillar 1. Tell us more.
This just hammers home the need for absolute clarity on your foundational beliefs, your non-negotiables. It means cultivating a culture where people deeply engage with the source material, the core texts or ideas, and having what you might call healthy conviction. A firm, clear adherence to what's essential, without becoming needlessly rigid or argumentative.
So the core principles act like your compass, your North Star.
Exactly. Your divine orientation, you could say.
Okay, pillar 1 is truth core principles. What's pillar 2?
Pillar 2 is rhythmic practices cultivating deep formation.
Rhythmic practices, like the rhythms we talked about earlier.
Precisely. This pillar focuses on embedding what's been called the pace of grace. It's about making things like a weekly Sabbath or some kind of regular rest non-negotiable, seeing rest not as weakness, but as a powerful act of resistance against the cult of endless productivity.
Resistance through rest. I
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, and it includes having a daily rule of life, some intentional structure for the ordinary days, reading, reflecting, connecting, plus those seasonal retreats or check-ins for deeper strategic alignment and renewal.
So these practices, they're not optional add-ons.
No, they're absolutely essential infrastructure for sustained vitality. You can't skip the maintenance and expect things to run well long term.
Makes sense. Pillar 1, truth. Pillar 2, Rhythm. What's the third?
Pillar 3 is purposeful outreach, mission with margin.
Mission with margin. What does that mean?
Here, the emphasis is that true impact, genuine mission is about precision. It's not just about frenetic activity, about being busy all the time.
Quality over quantity.
In a sense, yes. It speaks to things like relational engagement, equipping ordinary people within the community or organization to make genuine connections, to practice hospitality, to live out the mission in their everyday spheres. It's about being effective and deeply rooted in your mission, not just constantly busy for the mission, often without enough margin for rest or reflection.
So these three pillars, truth, rhythm, outreach, provide a really solid foundation.
A very solid foundation for sustained simplicity and impact.
Okay, this is great. It's moving beyond just identifying the problem of drift and complexity and offering a real path forward. This isn't just theory for you listening. We're talking practical steps. Sustaining simplicity, it requires real intentionality, doesn't it? A framework.
Absolutely. Which brings us to something the sources call the Simplicity Sustainability Plan. Think of it as a practical, maybe quarterly rhythm for renewal, for yourself or for your team or organization.
A quarterly rhythm. Okay, break that down for us. What happens each quarter?
Well, in the first quarter, the focus is on foundational reflection.
So back to pillar 1.
Exactly. Re-anchoring in your core truths, your foundational principles. Asking, are we still clear on our why? Are our core beliefs shaping our actions?
Okay, quarter 1. Re-anchor in truth, quarter 2.
Quarter 2 is rhythm assessment. This connects to pillar 2.
Evaluating the pace.
Yes. How are our daily, weekly, seasonal rhythms actually shaping us? Are they leading towards fragmentation and burnout or towards wholeness and resilience? Are we practicing rest as resistance? Is our daily structure intentional?
That takes some honest self-assessment.
It does.
Okay, quarter 3.
Quarter 3 is impact evaluation. This ties into pillar 3, mission with margin.
So checking if we're actually effective.
Right. Are we just busy, or are we truly making the impact we're called to make? Are our activities aligned with our core purpose? Are we operating with enough margin, or are we running on fumes?
Realigning the mission to ensure real impact. Got it. And the final quarter, quarter 4.
Quarter 4 is for vision renewal. This is about looking back over the year, reflecting on what's been learned, celebrating faithfulness.
And looking ahead.
And looking ahead. Preparing for the next cycle with clarity. And this is critical. Quarter 4 is prime time for that strategic pruning we talked about. Deciding what needs to stop to make space for what needs to grow.
So it's this ongoing cycle. Reflect on truth, assess rhythms, evaluate impact, renew vision, and prune. It's not a one-time fix.
Not at all. It's a continuous process of tending the garden, you might say.
The sources also mention diagnostic tools, ways to spot trouble early.
Yes, really valuable tools for spotting those early warning signs of an unhealthy culture, of drift taking hold.
Like what kind of signs?
Things like hyper-spiritualization, where everything is overly spiritualized, avoiding practical realities, or program overload, just too much going on, leadership centralization, too much power in one place, financial opacity, lack of transparency about money, rising levels of burnout, or even conflict avoidance. Nobody wants to address the elephant in the room.
Those are definitely things to watch out for.
And the idea is to prompt you, the listener, to consider, how might these apply in my context? Seeing these signs early allows for intervention before drift becomes deeply entrenched.
And there are even practical exercises people can use.
Yeah, things like personal audits to assess your own alignment. Action mapping tools helping you decide what you need to start, stop, and sustain in your life or work. Even exercises like writing a legacy letter to clarify your long-term vision and values.
So lots of practical ways to engage with this. This deep dive is really an invitation, isn't it, for you to think about how you can implement these principles.
Exactly, to take it from concept to reality.
So let's bring this all together. What does this mean for you listening right now? We've talked a lot about drift, complexity, simplicity. What's the bottom line?
Well, I think the bottom line is that sustained simplicity, it's not just a nice idea. It's not just a style or a preference. It's actually a powerful form of protection.
Protection against what?
Against some really common enemies. It guards against rigidity, against legalism, by constantly recentering us on grace, on lightness, on the core purpose.
Okay, protection from rigidity.
It protects against exclusivity, against becoming insular, by fostering genuine unity and shared purpose around that core.
And what else? Burnout.
Definitely burnout. It stands as a powerful shield against burnout because it intentionally builds in a restorative pace. It offers space to breathe, to recover, to sustain energy for the long haul.
That's huge. Because burnout is everywhere.
It is. And simplicity offers an alternative path.
When you think about it, those early movements we discussed, the ones that had such a massive impact,
Yeah.
they didn't change the world because they had the most complex strategies or the biggest budgets, did they?
Not at all. Their power came from their stunning clarity, the profound devotion to what truly mattered. Their strength was in their uncluttered allegiance to a core purpose, in their simple yet deeply meaningful practices, and in their unwavering focus on their mission.
Clarity and devotion, not complexity.
That seems to be the key.
Okay, so here's where it gets really challenging, maybe. A provocative thought for you to take away from this deep dive.
Let's hear it.
Think about your own life, your work, your community. What assumptions are you holding on to about success? What definitions of progress or growth might you actually need to release?
Release. For the sake of what?
For the sake of long-term vitality. For the sake of genuine spiritual longevity. Or maybe ask yourself this. If someone wrote your story 50 years from now, would they describe a life or a work that finished well? A story of sustained impact, of faithfulness over the long haul? Or would it be a story that, flamed out beautifully for a season but ultimately didn't last?
Wow. That's a sobering question. Finished well or flamed out?
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And this whole deep dive, really, it's an encouragement for you to embrace that long journey, the journey of faithfulness, building a life, building work, building community that's deeply rooted.
Rooted in clarity.
Rooted in clarity and conviction.
And in that core purpose. In Christ alone, as some sources put it.
Exactly. That disciplined simplicity we've been exploring. It's not easy, but it seems essential for building something truly meaningful, something that lasts.